your brain is keeping you stuck, not because you're lazy, not because you lack talent, and not because you aren't working hard enough. You're stuck because you're thinking the same way most people think about money, success, and problems. And the uncomfortable truth is this: most people are terrible at making financial decisions. I've spent hundreds of hours in rooms with billionaires, and I also grew up around people who had absolutely nothing. And once you strip away the noise, the degrees, the resumes, the background stories, the real difference between them has nothing to do with luck, intelligence, or even work ethic. It's how they think. The top 1% operate with a completely different mental operating system. They see the world differently. They interpret stress differently. They make decisions differently. And because of that, they play an entirely different game with money, one where the rules are tilted in their favor. What I want to walk you through today are 6 mental principles that the top 1% use consistently. These principles aren't motivational quotes. They're not feel-good ideas. They are ways of thinking that quietly compound over time and lead to real, sustainable wealth, no matter where you're starting from. When the 1% face stress, setbacks, or drama, they don't immediately react the way most people do. They don't panic. They don't spiral. They ask a single question that changes everything: will this even matter in 5 years? That question sounds almost too simple, but it's shockingly powerful. Because when you slow down and honestly answer it, you realize that about 99% of the things that stress you out today will not matter at all 5 years from now. And that perspective is everything. It keeps you focused on what compounds instead of what distracts. I remember a Thursday night not too long ago. I had just finished an entire day of back-on-one meetings with my team. It was one of those days where you're mentally drained by the end of it. Late that night, I got a text from one of my team members that simply said, "I need to talk to you." Naturally, I called her immediately. She told me that one of our favorite team members had decided to resign and would be leaving in 2 weeks. Now, in that moment, it would have been incredibly easy to spiral, to feel frustrated, to worry about retraining, workload momentum, and the emotional loss of someone we genuinely enjoyed working with. But instead, we had a calm conversation, and I ran that 5-year framework in real time. 5 years from now, would I even remember that this happened? The honest answer was no. 5 years from now, I'll be excited about what I'm building, what she's building, and what he's building next. That perspective completely neutralized the stress. Because these moments of friction, drama, and disruption are never remembered for the event itself. They're remembered for how you handled them. If you're a stressed person, your memories will be filled with stress. If you're calm and grounded, your memories will be filled with growth and momentum. Most people confuse urgency with importance. Just because something feels urgent doesn't mean it deserves your emotional energy. The 1% understand this distinction deeply. They don't ignore problems, but they triage them correctly. The next time something goes wrong, pause before reacting and ask yourself whether this will matter in 5 years. If the answer is no, handle it with minimal energy. If the answer is yes, then it deserves your full strategic attention. That simple filter alone will save you years of wasted emotional bandwidth. The second principle flips one of the most common beliefs about success completely on its head. Don't focus on working harder. Focus on patterns. Over the last decade, I've studied thousands of businesses, and I've noticed something fascinating. The majority of businesses never break past the $1 million mark in revenue. And it's not because they don't work hard. It's because they fail to recognize repeating patterns. When I kept seeing top performers burn out after hitting their first million, I realized this wasn't an effort problem. It was a systems problem. At the $1 million level, the business owner often becomes the bottleneck. They can't train people effectively. They solve the same problems repeatedly instead of fixing them permanently. For a long time, I found myself having the same conversations with different founders, solving the same issues over and over again. That's when it clicked. If a problem shows up more than once, it's not a coincidence. It's a system failure. And the 1% are exceptional at zooming out far enough to see cycles instead of incidents. These cycles show up everywhere. People cycles, cash flow cycles, operational breakdowns. And once you see them, you stop trying to outwork the problem. Instead, you design a system that eliminates it. Hard work keeps you busy. Pattern recognition paired with systems is what makes you wealthy. Look at the last 3 problems you solved. Are they actually the same issue wearing different masks? If they are, stop reacting and start building infrastructure. Solve it once. Document it. Implement it permanently. That's how you scale without burning out. The third principle is what separates operators from true leaders. It's called one level up thinking. When problems come across my desk now, I don't immediately jump in to solve them. I ask myself a different question. If I were sitting on the board, how would I handle this? That single shift removes emotion and forces structure. It also prevents you from becoming the permanent firefighter in your own life and business. I learned this lesson the hard way early on in our business. We were facing a massive fulfillment issue that was going to require hundreds of hours of rework. It was my responsibility. And instead of jumping in to save the situation, my husband refused to help. Not because he didn't care, but because it wasn't his role. That forced me to rise to the occasion, design a real solution, and own the outcome. And as uncomfortable as it was, it changed everything. When you constantly jump in to solve problems, your team never grows, the system never improves. You stay trapped at the same level. The 1% constantly zoom out and think at the next level up. That's how they transition from doing the work to designing the machine. The next time you face a decision, pause and ask yourself how someone one level above you would approach it. What would they prioritize? What would they ignore? That question alone upgrades your thinking instantly. The fourth principle is one of the hardest to master, but one of the most freeing emotionless decision-making. When I fired my executive vice president, it wasn't emotional, it was math. The numbers told the story long before the feelings ever did. When someone enters an environment and the metrics tied to their role start declining consistently, you don't need drama. You don't need conflict. You need clarity. I used to take tough decisions personally. I would second-guess myself and let emotion cloud reality. Now, I treat emotions like background noise. I acknowledge them, but I don't let them drive decisions. The elite separate feelings from facts, they make data-driven bets, and that discipline brings peace. When you base decisions on truth instead of emotion, execution speeds up and regret disappears. The next time you face a tough decision, write down the facts and your feelings separately. Look at the data. Make the decision from that column. You don't remove someone from your life or business because you don't like them. You do it because the numbers don't work. That shift alone will make you faster, calmer, and more precise. The fifth principle is about the one resource you can never get back: time. The 1% protect time like capital. They don't manage it, they allocate it. I used to say yes to quick calls, casual meetings, and small interruptions. And those little yeses added up to massive energy lost through constant context switching. Once I started saying no, I bought back hours for strategy, thinking, and leadership. I learned this lesson in college. One of my friends was always busy. Coffee dates, lunches, social plans. She felt productive, but her grades suffered. I kept a small circle, focused on my priorities, and got results. Busy does not equal effective. The elite audit their calendars like financial statements. If an hour doesn't generate leverage, it doesn't make the cut. This week, audit your calendar. Ask what the return is on each hour. Cancel, delegate, or shorten anything that doesn't move you forward. Your calendar today is a preview of your future. The final principle ties everything together. Your environment shapes your thinking. I used to believe I could succeed despite my environment. But if you can't control your surroundings, you can't control your results. Your physical space, relationships, habits, and conversations all feed your mental operating system. When I finally took an honest look at my environment, everything changed. I became ruthless about who I spent time with, and I watched how removing a single negative influence dramatically improved my husband's happiness and clarity. That's not coincidence. That's leverage. The 1% curate their environment intentionally. They surround themselves with people who stretch their standards and challenge their thinking. If your environment doesn't challenge you, it will quietly trap you in mediocrity. Your thinking will never outpace your surroundings. If you apply these 6 principles consistently, you will start thinking differently than 99% of people, and that difference compounds into wealth, clarity, and freedom over time. And if you want to learn how the 1% communicate so people actually listen, watch the next video.